common laboratory apparatus and equipment. Today we will carry on with this chapter and we will learn about some more apparatus which are used in the lab. The first apparatus which you can see here is the tripod stand. What is the purpose of a tripod stand? It supports the apparatus during experiments involving heating. Now what do we mean by it? Many a times we have to heat chemicals in the lab. So when we heat the chemicals, we use this tripod stand to support the apparatus. So here on top part, this triangular top part of it, which you can see, we place a wire gauze on this part. And on top of the wire gauze, we may keep a beaker, a round bottom flask, or maybe a conical flask, and we heat the chemicals. And below here in this place, we will keep the Bunsen burner or the spirit lamp for the heating purpose. So the tripod stand during this process of heating supports the apparatus. Now, what is it made up of? It is made up of iron. So we move on to the next apparatus, that's round bottom flask. You can see the round bottom flask in the figure. The bottom part is fully round, so you have to hold it. It cannot stand on its own. Now what is the purpose of a round bottom flask? It is used for heating chemicals and distillation. Now when we prepare different types of gas in the lab or maybe different acids, that time we have to heat the chemicals which are required to prepare that particular gas. So we use a round bottom flask for it. A round bottom flask is made up of glass. Now what you will do, you will pause the video and you will draw the round bottom flask in your copy. And when you are drawing the round bottom flask, a few things you have to keep note of. Whenever you draw a lab apparatus, you have to keep note of a few things. The first one, you should be using a very sharp pencil. Okay. The second point is a scale, a compass. These things have to be used. You cannot do a freehand drawing of these apparatus. You have to be accurate with your measurements out there and you have to get the shape correct. Now this part of the flask, when you draw, you will use a compass or a coin to draw it a circle. The whole thing of it, you can see, will be a circle. Only this part of the circle will be open. Here it will be the neck of the flask. This long elongated part is called the neck of the flask. So that's how you will draw a round bottom flasks. Usually if this round part is, you take 3 lines to draw, then the neck part you should take 4 to 5 lines for drawing the neck part of the round bottom flask. Best will be if you take 5 lines for drawing the neck part of the round bottom flask. So I hope you have finished drawing, and now we won't move on to the next apparatus, spatula. A spatula is used to transfer solid chemicals from the containers. Now when you do experiments, you need very small quantities of chemicals, and please take a note of it. A best person in the lab, who is a good worker in the lab, will always use small quantities of chemical. It is never advisable to use large quantities of chemicals. Okay. But when we store the chemicals, we store it in big containers and in a large amount. So from there you have to take the chemical and you have to transfer it into the apparatus in which you are carrying out the experiment, which can be a test tube, which can be a beaker or a conical flask. And what we do is we use this spatula, which is made up of usually metals, for transferring the chemical from one place to another. The chemical which we transfer is solid chemicals. We cannot use it for transferring any other chemicals. We use it for transferring solid chemicals from the containers to the apparatus in which I am carrying out the experiment. The next apparatus here is evaporating dish. The evaporating dish is used for evaporating solutions or liquids. So whenever we need to evaporate any solution, that is a mixture of a solid and a liquid, or maybe sometimes evaporate a liquid and see whether any solid particles are left behind or not. We want to collect those solid particles dissolved in the liquid. We use a evaporating dish for evaporation. You will also pause the video now and draw a evaporating dish. The evaporating dish is usually made up of porcelain. Okay. So you can see it's just a bowl shaped container which has been made of porcelain. Now this apparatus, which is made up of glass, is called a gas jar. It's used for collecting gases. If you prepare gases in the lab and you want to collect them in one place, you use a gas jar to collect it. You will always have a lid to cover up this gas jar and keep the gas in that jar itself. Now you will pause the video and draw this gas jar in your copy again. Okay, and remember, a sharp pencil and a scale has to be used for drawing the gas jar, and it cannot be very narrow and it cannot be very thick. This thickness gives you the idea how much thick it should be in your copy also. Iron stand and clamp. It is used to support apparatus during experiments. Now, many experiments are there when you need to hold the apparatus, like a few time before, just a few minutes before, you have seen the use of round bottom flask for preparing different chemicals or carrying out experiments. Now the round bottom flask, you cannot it cannot sit on the table steady. You have to hold it. So how do you hold it? You use a clamp stand to support this apparatus, this round bottom flask. So this clamp here, this part, if you can see, this part will stick to this iron stand here. Okay, and in this space we usually use the test tube. We can hold a test tube or a burette. A burette is an apparatus also which we use for carrying out titrations, or maybe the round bottom flask, the neck of the flask in this part. Obviously in case of round bottom flask, this has to be a little bigger, so you will get clamps of different sizes depending on the apparatus which you are using. But this is a commonly type clamp which is found in lab, because we use the clamp stand more in school laboratories to hold a burette. And you can understand all these are made of metals, especially iron. Now this is what a wire gauze is. A wire gauze is used to keep the glass apparatus on it while heating is in progress. So what you will be doing, you want to heat it. You have seen a tripod stand was used to support the apparatus during experiment, and I told you, you place a wire gauze on the tripod stand. So this is how the wire gauze looks like. This wire gauze will be placed on the tripod stand, and on this part, this white part which you can see in the center, here you place the apparatus. Now this wire gauze is made up of meshed iron wire and a thin asbestos sheet that's fixed at this center. So this is an asbestos sheet which has been fixed at the center, and this is the iron mesh which has been used to make the wire gauze. So when heating will be taking place, the apparatus is placed here, and the wire gauze also allows a uniform distribution of the heat. So the heat spreads uniformly in all directions, and all part of the apparatus receive same amount of heat. Now here we come to the next apparatus, that's thistle funnel. A thistle funnel is used to transfer liquids in a controlled manner. Again, during lab preparations of gases and acids, we use this thistle funnel to transfer the acid or any other chemicals into the round bottom flask or the flat bottom flask, wherever the reaction is actually happening. So what we can do is, when we use a thistle funnel, we can control the amount of liquid we are pouring. So we can slowly pour the liquids, a small amount at a time. A thistle funnel is made up of glass. Now you will pause the video here again and you will draw a thistle funnel in your copy. So I hope you have finished drawing a thistle funnel in the copy, and now we will go on to the next one. The next apparatus, it's a mortar and pestle. A mortar and pestle is used to grind and crush solid substances. Sometimes we get the solid chemicals in the form of lumps, solid lumps. But for reaction to take place at a faster rate and to be more effective, we need to crush those lumps into small powder. So we use this mortar and pestle to grind and crush the solid chemicals. A mortar and pestle is also made up of porcelain. So we have finished studying about the commonly used apparatus in the lab. Obviously, as you will go to higher classes, you will learn about more other apparatus. But for now, for an introduction to chemistry at your starting point, these many apparatus is good enough for the time being. Now we will go into a fun time. In the fun time, we will explore the subject and we will test ourselves on how much we have learned. So you can see this diagram here already, and this diagram contains many apparatus. You have to carefully look at the diagram and identify all the apparatus present in the diagram. Okay. Not only identify the apparatus, you have to name the apparatus. So they told you how many types of apparatus. So the total number of apparatus here, as well as the name of each of these apparatus and which diagram is actually which apparatus. It's not like you randomly name there's a round bottom flask or there's a mortar and pestle, or there is a funnel out here. You have to tell me which diagram is which apparatus. So have a nice time doing this question, answering this question, and we finish off the study of different types of apparatus with it.